Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
February 23rd, 2020, Do You Want a Challenge Edition? And we begin with that as our lead story from Dylan Tokar at the Wall Street Journal Risk and Compliance Journal, as HSBC has named an interim compliance CCO position. Kirsty Everett, the chief, will serve as the bank's interim compliance officer as it looks to fill the role permanently. The vacancy was created by the appointment of Colin Bell, the former CCO, who will become chief executive of HSBC Europe and the bank. So you think you have a challenge as CCO, think about HSBC with its various settlements with the U.S. regulators, and now its shift to supporting the Chinese national government in the Hong Kong current disputes and its move east, and what compliance challenges will occur there. Next up, thinking about cotton. Well, according to the Washington Post, U.S. ban on China's cotton fractures fashion industry supply chains. Multiple U.S. brands have canceled orders of Chinese cotton, and this obviously is going to negatively impact China's cotton crop. But what about the global supply chain for cotton? Cotton picked up in China is literally sewn in garments across Asia from Bangladesh to Vietnam. And the U.S. ban applies to products made in whole or in part with certain types of Chinese cotton, regardless of where the downstream products are to be produced. This is in response to the Chinese government's campaign against the Uyghurs, a Turkic ethnic minority, where it's put them in internment camps. So if this hopefully was on your risk register for alternative sources for cotton. Adam Neumann reappears in the news, according to the Wall Street Journal, as the WeWork co-founder nears a settlement with SoftBank. SoftBank could spend roughly $1.5 billion to buy shares of early investors and employees. The Post reports advanced talks to settle a high-profile legal fight, as Neumann is agreeing to cut nearly $500 million in his payout, but still he's going to get a big chunk of money. So Adam Neumann comes out of this smelling, if not quite like a rose, certainly with a lot of money. And then finally, for those of you who believe in the rule of law and certainly want to live in a country where the rule of law controls, Donald Trump has to turn over his tax records to New York prosecutors. He had claimed that as president, he could not be investigated by state officials, and the U.S. Supreme Court cleared the way, or certainly rejected that argument by not taking up his latest appeal to keep his tax returns hidden. So it's going to be interesting, obviously, to see what's in there. But it's more than simply tax returns. It's documents from his accountant, which will form a much bigger or clearer picture of the financial state of the Trump empire over the past 10 years or so. This could be a prelude to bank fraud or insurance fraud, wire fraud, or other fraud charges against Trump and or the Trump business empire. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.